Today on Chainlinked, Andrew Trudel from Kwenta joins me to discuss Kwenta's place in the DeFi ecosystem, how it spawned from the Synthetix suite, and how DAO-style community engagement creates a vibrant ecosystem for new DeFi products. Chainlink is a pocket-sized podcast series talking to the builders in the Chainlink ecosystem. We get to know the people bringing the many applications of Chainlink blockchain oracles to life across global enterprise, the blockchain industry, and more. My name's Dr. Andy Boyan. You can call me Andy, and I'll be your host. Andrew Trudel is a core contributor at Kwenta. We're talking to learn about what Kwenta does and how it fits into DeFi alongside Synthetix. Hey, Andrew, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Walk us through Kwenta. How is it a distinct offering from Synthetix? What's the relationship with Synthetix platform and community? Like, what do you guys do that's different?
Yeah, for sure. So originally, Kwenta started out as Synthetix Exchange, and it was just the interface to interact with Synthetix, which offers synthetic assets. So you could trade everything from synthetic Bitcoin, synthetic Ethereum, even to more interesting assets like synthetic oil, all through the Synthetix Exchange interface. But the problem was that people were confusing Synthetix the exchange with Synthetix the protocol. And we wanted to separate the branding. So we worked with the community to create Kwenta, which had separate branding, separate community from Synthetix. And that worked to essentially divide the two offerings. And now we've kind of split them out even further. And Kwenta is becoming its own protocol, which will rely heavily on Synthetix and still act as a front end for it, but potentially expand beyond that to improve the product offering.
For some context, can you talk a little bit about like what does the Synthetix protocol do? Because that'll inform how Kwenta plays a role.
Yeah, for sure. So the Synthetix protocol, the going term for it that we use is a derivatives liquidity protocol, which is a bit of wordplay, but essentially it's a large pool of Synthetix staked that's used to collateralize SUSD or any other Synthetix asset. And by doing that, we end up with this big pool of liquidity that can be used for any purpose that we can find a good use case for. And that enables us to create everything from synthetic assets to even adding liquidity for more advanced financial products like futures or options by being the counter trader to those parties. So that's pretty much what Synthetix does. It's just a flexible pool of liquidity that can be used for a lot of different purposes, with synthetic assets being its spearhead and flagship product.
I understand it as you use the Synthetix token to add an amount of value that you want in, and then you pull out an equivalent amount of that value in whatever token format it is. So Bitcoin, whatever that happens to be, the price of Bitcoin, you get that much Bitcoin out compared to the amount of Synthetix token that you put in. And in this way, you kind of can use the Synthetix token to mint a whole bunch of different other sorts of assets. Is that about right?
Yep, that's correct. There's a ratio. The ratio dictates how much the pool can collateralize, and that depends on the value of SNX at any time and the given ratio as it's changed by the protocol.
Tell me a little bit about what are the advantages of this model in terms of using it on a DEX, a decentralized exchange, like the wording around your website and stuff about no slippage. Is that kind of the core use case there, or are there some other benefits as well?
No, so I think zero slippage has been something that's been very important to the Synthetix community for a long time. It'll maintain its ability to still offer best price execution across the entire DEX ecosystem. But with the security measures that we're putting in place and V3 coming up, the change that we want to see in the protocol is its ability to ramp up its product offering more aggressively. So some of the concerns that exist right now with Synthetix are being able to protect the debt pool by essentially making sure we have assets that we believe have adequate liquidity to not disrupt or add risk to the debt pool that's collateralizing those synthetic assets. But with V3 and some of the measures we're going to put in place, it'll protect the debt pool a little bit more effectively and enable us to add more synthetic assets, even more volatile ones, as well as volatile products such as futures, perpetual futures. So this is a step in the right direction to improve the product offering from Synthetix, which may in turn take the focus a little bit away from zero slippage, but still guarantee users best price execution.
How does Chainlink play into this? You mint a synthetic asset. You're going to get the price of Bitcoin from a Chainlink feed. How does Kwenta use Chainlink?
Yeah, so Kwenta relies on Chainlink to determine the price of all the assets we have. And that'll apply to any of the products. So whether it's futures, whether it's shorting, whether it's options, the price feed that we'll be getting for any of those assets comes from Chainlink. So it's really the foundation of the assets that we're supporting, any of the products that we're supporting. So it's really critical that we have Chainlink in the background giving us the prices so that we can essentially make sure that our users are able to use the mechanism that Synthetix offers,
Mm-hmm.
which essentially can morph the liquidity available into any asset by using Chainlink. So it gives us a lot of flexibility to reach any asset that's available through Chainlink, which can be both inside of crypto as well as outside of crypto, which is something much, much harder to do and something that's much rarer in the decentralized space. So that's a really strong core advantage is our relationship with Chainlink, as it'll enable us to expand far beyond just the crypto space with this product, enabling us to compete with some of the more centralized products like centralized exchanges and even traditional finance. So it's a crucial Kwenta success.
How is that a different model than something like an AMM, which kind of finds its own pricing?
Yeah, so the AMM model forces users to have a supply of the asset that it's mimicking.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, if you were trying to mimic the price of gold in an AMM model, you would actually have to have gold on the other side of that AMM, sort of being counter traded. Whereas in Synthetix, you just have this big pool of collateral. And by using Chainlink, we declare that that collateral is going to be tied to the price of gold. And that enables us to much more flexibly access assets that are outside of the space without needing to actually hold ownership of those assets. So the crucial difference between those two is that you're really just investing or trading or whatever the term you like to use is, or gaining exposure might be the best, to the asset's price more so than the actual underlying asset and having access to that asset. So it's more about price exposure and less about ownership of that asset.
You've been on Optimism with Layer 2 for a while now. How's the transition going? Like, how is it for the development team? How is it for the community and the users?
So for us, it really feels like we're still at the start.
Mm-hmm.
We have SUSD, SLink, SETH, and SBTC available, but we have much more assets we'd like to add to that. So it really feels like we're only at the beginning of the growth onto Optimism. With futures and a couple of the other products that we'd like to roll out, I think we'll see an expansion on Optimism. But from the experiences that we've heard from users, it's been extremely positive. It's very fast, very affordable. So it's a much, much better experience. It doesn't really compromise any of the composability that we care so much about in the Synthetix ecosystem. So it really checks off a lot of those boxes for us. We also have a lot of faith in the Optimism team to achieve its goals. And we have a close relationship with them. So it's been nice to work closely with them, and it's been a very positive experience thus far.
I'll be talking to them in a couple of weeks. I'm looking forward to meeting with them as well.
Great.
Are there any challenges getting the liquidity needed onto Optimism and Layer 2? Like, what are some things that happen behind the scenes that you've got to overcome? There is this move from a Layer 1 to a Layer 2. It's not just changing your browser tab or anything like that. There's some work there. What are the kind of challenges as you look to add other assets and things like that?
Okay, so there's probably about two challenges that I see. One's just the user experience of getting people over to Optimism and making sure that they understand that they're going to have to toggle between a new chain to properly access what's available. Mm-hmm. And that's just a user experience issue. I think that's very solvable with some hand-holding. So not something we're very worried about. The other one is having adequate liquidity on L2. Mm-hmm. This is also extremely solvable because with the way that Synthetix works, and as well as the incentive system that's going to exist in Kwenta, we can make sure that the incentives are high enough to be on L2 over L1, making it essentially profitable to be on L2 over L1. And that would push SNX stakers over to L2 and encourage them to provide the liquidity we need to collateralize any of the assets on L2. So these are really just things that we want to have play out organically. So as we have more users come over to L2, we want to make sure that the experience is continually refined based on feedback. And then as we have those users move over and we need more liquidity to make sure that we're staying in tune with prices and in general, making sure that the supply meets the demand, we can increase the incentives to be over there. So it's kind of an organic rubber band that we're kind of playing with and adjusting as needed.
That's a really interesting differentiator, I feel like, for a Layer 2 and something like Synthetix is if I'm an AMM and I need a liquidity pool there, let's say it's ETH and USD or USDT or whatever, I need to move both of those assets over there to create a liquidity pool. And in your case, you only need to move one. And if you want to do two different assets, USDC and Bitcoin or wrapped Bitcoin, you've also got to move two more assets. So that could actually really simplify getting liquidity on there.
Right. Yeah. It just adds a lot of flexibility to make the transition easier without losing any of the product offering. So it's definitely a big help having the Synthetix mechanism being the thing that we're transferring over. So very ideal.
That's really interesting. Andrew, I want to get to know you a little bit as well. We've gotten to know Kwenta and Synthetix, how you guys are working, especially in the L2 space. Who are you? Do you have a personal philosophy that relates to working in blockchain? Like, how did you get involved in this and kind of what drives you here?
I've been here for a long time, since the start of like DeFi, essentially. So about 3-4 years. Originally, I was with a project that was tackling subscription payments and cryptocurrency. And they had brought me to a conference, I think it was ETH Denver. And I saw all the momentum in the space and all the people developing on Ethereum. And I was immediately sold. I was like, if there's that many, intelligent people trying to solve hard problems on Ethereum, I think this is going to stay. Like this is going to, keep on solving problems. So for me, just seeing that experimentation and the problem solving happening at such a rapid pace, it really reinforced my belief that this was something that was extremely valuable and going to continue to be extremely valuable. This whole ecosystem in general of DeFi and the like money Lego model where you can sort of attach the different pieces in DeFi together. And I think these incentive systems that exist in the background that are facilitating all of this, the DAO structures and the general models for making sure that everyone's happy to continue operating these systems, really adds the sticking power that it needs to continue to be successful. So I'm a very, very strong advocate in the idea of incentive systems. I think that's how things are long lasting. When I originally started looking into where I wanted to develop a career, I noticed that some of the more interesting models were using business as a sort of weapon to solve a problem. If you could turn solving a problem into a business and make profit off of it, it was going to not only be sustainable, but it was likely going to grow and expand and find new problems to solve. So having these incentive structures that where it's essentially profitable to solve problems really checks off a massive box for me, because that means that we're creating the foundation for us to continue solving problems with this technology. So that's where I'm coming from. And I really think that even some of the trading platforms where it's a lot of adding leverage to positions, these are really just very basic financial principles that we're going to be building on top of to expand what's possible. And we're also proving DAO structures in the back end. So making sure that these protocols can run themselves, communities can coordinate effectively without losing or compromising to include centralization, basically ensuring decentralization. And I think that's all happening. It's all happening in a very clear way. So I am fully a believer in this space. And I really do think it's something that can enhance general financial equality and really create a new opportunity for people that just otherwise wouldn't have had that opportunity, just because now you can, connect to an internet and immediately start using pretty fantastic financial tools that have either been gated or outside of their access before. So it's a very, very big opportunity for me.
Something you mentioned, the DAO angle, these sort of community spawned projects or spin-offs. Something that's been really impressive in the Synthetix community is Kwenta. There was a need for Kwenta, and then they pulled people from the community up to help create it. Tailies the same way, like another one of these sort of Synthetix ecosystem projects. Can you talk a little bit about that? What is that relationship? What's it like working for a DAO-ish sort of thing? What is that? What's happening there?
Initially, we saw Synthetix split out from Synthetix Exchange, right? And become more of a protocol and continue to build on the narrative that was a protocol. And that immediately sort of sparked DHedge, which was a sort of portfolio management tool that only used synthetic assets at the time and enabled people to mimic the trades of top traders, making it easier to trade all of a sudden. And I thought that was pretty exciting. And then other projects started jumping in. So you saw Curve create cost asset swaps, where they were basically using this liquidity pool to create very low slippage trades at size. So again, seeing that more composability between two different projects. And then it kind of started to reach a point where there were things that were inspired from inside of the Synthetix ecosystem. So Lyra was an options protocol that was originally spawned from a core contributor. And then they decided to split out and create their own project. And that was a little bit separate. And then there was this final stage where from within the community, it was really hard to distinguish that one single person actually came up with that idea. Synthetix Exchange had been something that the community ran. It wasn't really something that one person decided to go do. Same thing with Thales. We had binary options trading, Synthetix, and it was on the Synthetix Exchange platform, but it wasn't really responsible, one person responsible for it. So both Kwenta and Thales are unique in that they were actually voted out to turn into their own independent protocols with their own teams and governance systems in a completely decentralized manner without one person taking ownership of those platforms. There was groups of people that collaborated to make that happen, but it's really hard to pinpoint a founder of any kind because it's really a community movement that it was in the best interest of the Synthetix ecosystem to split out Thales and Kwenta. So now Thales operates independently as a binary options market using Synthetix as a liquidity platform and Chainlink. And Kwenta has now split out as a trading hub. And it's going to work to try and take on the centralized trading experience in a completely decentralized manner.
Something Cooper Turley talks about is multiplayer mode. I think a lot of people in Ethereum talk about multiplayer mode now. This feels like that. Like, oh, we can win together. And it's a different sort of model than a centralized company building up a separate product wing and then either divesting or selling that wing or whatever that is. It's kind of that, but it's mimicking it on this decentralized sort of side and this community-oriented side, which speaks to product fit, right? If there's enough of a community movement in the Synthetix ecosystem to start a new project, you've kind of got built-in users.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the community aspect is by far the most valuable part of Synthetix. It's that a whole community believes in Synthetix being a viable mechanism to build the foundations of a financial system with. You're seeing people experiment with that and grow on top of it. And it's not really just one focal point that's keeping it all together. It's really that this community is evolving and growing and the momentum's continuing to pick up as that community attracts more people. So you get this snowballing effect from the community that's really at the heart of decentralization, where if you took away one or two pieces, it's not going to make a difference. The community is going to continue to support the protocol. And that's really what I think makes DAOs unique, is that they really can't be stopped by just removing one or two pieces. It's more that they are community owned and decentralized.
Andrew, it's been awesome talking to you, getting to know you and Kwenta. Where should people follow you and follow Kwenta to learn more?
Yeah, visiting Kwenta on Twitter for any of the big news updates. And then we also encourage you to join the Kwenta Discord, where all of the discussions about the protocol, the DAO, new products that are rolling out via Kwenta are discussed. So that would be the best place to actually engage with the community directly.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, man. Nice talking to you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks for joining me to learn about Kwenta. As I mentioned in the interview, I'll be talking to the Optimism team soon, as well as bringing more content for aspiring developers. I'll be talking to top teams and topics around CBDCs, NFTs, and more. Help me grow the Chainlink podcast to give more projects a voice to speak to the Chainlink community and beyond. Rate and review on Apple Podcasts or whatever your favorite podcasting app is, and make sure to follow Chainlinked on Spotify as well. Follow me on Twitter at Andy Boyan and share this episode with your friends who need to get a deeper insight into Web3. Also, follow Chainlink Today on Twitter at Chainlink Today and read more about the stories behind some of the industry's top projects. While you're join the Chainlink communities. You can find other Web3 explorers in the Chainlink Telegram and Discord chats. Thanks for hanging out. I'll catch you next time.